El Salvador is a country located in Central America. It is governed by a democratic republic, along with a president and a unicameral legislative assembly. Along with the legislative assembly, there's also a judiciary branch and an executive branch that rule the country. The government is vastly corrupt, and the politics of El Salvador are based around greed and power. Rebuilding after the Civil War was a long process. Natural disasters such as Hurricane Mitch and earthquakes in 2001 slowed the process as well. Since then, the country has been able to improve and is rebuilding. In 2004, El Salvador signed the Central American Free Trade Agreement, which promoted free trade and production. Along with this, El Salvador has also agreed to a $461 million contract with the MCC, a major United States government agency which plans to stimulate the economy in the northern region. For the last couple of years, El Salvador's GDP has been growing steadily, increasing from 44.67 in 2010 to 45.3 in 2011, and finally to $45.85 billion in 2012. It's obvious that El Salvador's economy is improving. There's a direct correlation between the strength of the economy in El Salvador and the quality of life people are experiencing there. Just as the economy is improving very slowly, so are the lives of women and children in El Salvador. El Salvador's constitution outlines very few political rights for women, but nowhere does it mention social, cultural, or any economic rights. It is not a coincidence that women are often victims of violent shootings. There's a thing known as femicide, where women are killed because of their gender. Kidnapping of women in El Salvador is also very common. The New York Times describes an incident during the Civil War where a woman was trying to escape the country. She was stopped at a roadblock and was never heard from again, most likely sold into slavery or forced into prostitution. El Salvador has very little respect for its women. The gangs like MS-13 will do anything, including rape, kidnap, and murder women. Along with violence, women also hold very little or almost no political power in El Salvador. Women in El Salvador make up less than 9% of the government. Along with these social inequalities, there are also economic troubles that women hold. They are struck with low wages, low status, and tough, dangerous jobs. A common job for an El Salvadorian woman would be working in a clothing sweatshop, where conditions were poor and often very dangerous. The women in the picture are lucky enough to be working outside in the beautiful Central American weather. Children often face some of the same troubles and struggles that women do. The mortality rate for babies in El Salvador is 10 in 500. That means that 10 babies die for every 500 babies born. If the baby is lucky enough to survive, it is often born into terrible living conditions. Dirty, poor slums make up most of El Salvador. In many cases, children live on less than $1 a day, lacking basic necessities such as food, water, and healthcare.
This is a common problem in El Salvador. Carmen Portillo's son Jose
Some El Salvadorian children are lucky enough to have an education, but most are not. Fortunately, there are programs currently in place to help El Salvadorian children and women. An organization called Save the Children is currently in place in El Salvador. It helps children and their families in the ways of health, education, emergency response, and violence prevention. The organization United Nations Women is an example of a group that targets El Salvadoran women who are in need. UN Women fights for gender equality in El Salvador. Currently, the Gender Equality Index is 0.487, which ranks at 93 out of 146. Equality between people, no matter the race, gender, or age, should be a goal that the whole world strives for. The multitude of issues that women and children face is a major problem for El Salvador, and will continue to be until an outside force intervenes